And we are finally live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. And we've been trying to do this show for quite a while now, to be honest. And yeah, just having every single technical issue under the sun, which has been quite frustrating because, yeah, it's something that's quite overdue. But unfortunately, we've had load shedding, we've had work issues, we've had internet issues, which come with load shedding. We've had just a lot of issues, unfortunately. But yeah, we are less than 6 weeks, I think, until the first Springbok game, and we actually haven't had a chance to just chat about, especially on the back of the URC season. We've seen, well, not the season, but the group stages, for example. It's been quite a long and hard URC season, and our URC team of the season is going to come out later, which is going to be quite cool. So yeah, it's a nice time to sort of reflect and to start now thinking towards the bigger picture. The bigger picture being international matches, which start on the 2nd of July. So, yeah, and it's June next week. So next week Thursday is the 2nd. So next week Thursday will officially be 1 month before Springbok Rugby does commence. And the Springbok squad is actually set to be announced. What do people want? Go away. Away with you. Learning SARS is now trying to get hold of me. Really. But yeah, so in the next sort of week, we basically should be, in theory, should be unveiling the first Springbok squad. I think it's supposed to be on Sunday. They're supposed to be, yeah, I think it's Sunday. They're supposed to be announcing it officially. And they're supposed to, I think they're all going into the first sort of camp on the 6th of June. But obviously, some of the players will still be involved in the URC and stuff like that. But the players who aren't involved in the URC will be able to go and train, as long as they don't have any club duties, stuff like that. So, yeah, we are now talking about the big decisions, and I think it's going to be quite an interesting squad because traditionally, an incoming tour has always been the time to blood new players. Last year people were having a complete freak out about the lack of players playing during that outgoing tour, but traditionally that was never the time where they actually would blood people. It was, if you actually, we did a sort of analysis of the past. I think we did it from 2007 or 2006, around there. So from 2006 to like 2021. So over the past 15, 16 years, when would the most people make their debut? And most players would make their debut during the incoming tour because familiar conditions, for example, in front of a home crowd. I think a lot of it, I think preparation going into the rugby championship to see if there are players who can make the step up and should be involved in the higher level and stuff like that. And unfortunately, this is the first incoming tour we've had against a non-British and Irish Lions opposition since 2019, and even 2019 was a World Cup year. So the last non-World Cup year regular incoming tour was 2018. We're talking about 4 years ago. So that is why we haven't seen a lot of players necessarily make their debut, which I think is also a bit harsh. I think if you look at the amount of players making the debut last year, it was quite normal in terms of the regular sort of amount, especially in the kind of time. I think that last year, not enough people have paid attention to the fact that we didn't have 2020 international season. Now, that would have been the time to have blooded a lot of players, to start looking at bringing in players. And unfortunately, last year, we arrived. It was the British and Irish Lions series, so they stuck with what they knew. They stuck with the players that they trusted and the players that have won the World Cup. And then went straight into the Rugby Championship. And again, it was a very tough Rugby Championship because it was 4 games overseas. And so, it's going to be quite a tough condition. So again, it's sort of the cauldron. And do you want to sort of put players into that sort of situation where they might, sink or swim, and probably more likely to sink than swim, unfortunately. And then it's the outgoing tour, which, as I said, traditionally we have never really used the outgoing tour as an opportunity to bring more players in because it's foreign conditions. So we've missed a very crucial year of development for new players. And that's why I think that this is going to be a very interesting series, because on the one hand, this is the best and the only opportunity we have to experiment. this is the only opportunity we have to bring in youngsters and blood them and stuff like that. Really, if we're being brutally honest, because the rugby championship, you want to win the rugby championship. The outgoing tour is going to be blooming brilliant, by the way. It's Ireland, it's England, it's France. It's going to be a fantastic outgoing tour. But by the end of the year, we're talking about being, I mean, the rugby championship, there will only be 3 matches there next year because it's a short one because of the World Cup year, and incoming tour is usually 3 matches. So by the end of the year, we're looking at less than 10 matches before our first Rugby World Cup match. There, do you really want to be having a debutant or experimenting with a new midfield combination and stuff like that? When we start into that, very vital period. And I know this from a length of time wise, it's easier to say, but the Rugby World Cup's a year away. But the Rugby World Cup might only be 5 matches away. We might only have 400 minutes of rugby to finalize where we're going to be when we take to the field in France 2023. So there's so many different juggling acts to go with. So basically, yeah. So let's talk about some of the selections, some of the players. Where should we be looking to bring in players? What is very settled and we're very happy with? Are there any positions, for example, that's a major worry? I think fly half's a big worry at the moment. And what are some of the players who should be involved in the box, who shouldn't be involved in the box? Some of the players who aren't involved, why aren't they involved? Is it justified? Let's have this conversation. So yeah, let's use in the comments. So I'm seeing LB around here. I'm seeing Armand, I'm seeing Tia, I'm seeing Albert. So LB says box squad will be the same as always. Maybe have Galant, Fassi, and Rus in the wider squad. I mean, yeah, I think that Galant has to be in the squad. If you don't name Galant in the squad, it's ludicrous, because I think that it's a position that is very much under the microscope. But he ran under a lot of pressure, although I thought he actually had quite a decent end of year tour, especially in that Scotland game. He was very, very good. So I think that a lot of his critique is often very over dramatized. I don't think he's been as bad as a lot of people have been saying he has been. But he is old, and we do need to look at the next fullback. And the problem is, you haven't really had anybody bashing the door down just yet, because nobody else has played fullback. Really, Damien Willems had a game of fullback last year and had a bit of a shocker. On the other hand, I think Damien Willems is now starting to look like the Damien Willems of old, and I really enjoy him at inside centre. Fassi, for example, I think Fassi's got so much talent, but if we're being brutally honest, I find that he's been a little bit inconsistent. For example, I thought that last week he had a bit of a shocker on defensively. And I look at that one try in particular where he just basically played touch rugby with one of their players, and they went in and scored. So I do think that Fassi has got a lot of potential. I don't think he's the finished product to play at full back yet. I think that's why the Boks have played him on the wing. So for me, Galant is the only player who I think, and he's been part of the Boks squad before, where he can play the exact same role as Willie Leroux and be very much as good and probably a lot better because of the form he's in. He's just playing unbelievable rugby at the moment. Armand says, do you think Sia will be able to regain some good form in time for the Wales test? He seems a bit flat. I am not worried about Sia Khaleesi. I mean, I saw somebody commented on one of the videos saying that the Sharks need, I think he said the Sharks need to sell him and that he shouldn't even be making the Sharks Currie Cup side. And all I want to do is throw back a year ago, because Khaleesi was coming back from injury and he wasn't playing particularly good rugby. And everybody was sitting there saying, doesn't deserve to be in the Boks squad, certainly doesn't deserve to be the captain and stuff like that. 6 months later, he was named the South African Player of the Year. And he had the most unreal international season we've ever seen from Sia Khaleesi. Him, Michael Hooper, and Artie Sevilla were the best loose forwards in the world last year during the Rugby Championship, during the British and Irish Lions Series, during that outgoing tour. So I think that Khaleesi is someone, for whatever reason, whether it's the way the Boks play, whether it's the occasion, he lifts himself when he pulls on a Springbok jersey. He looks a completely different player when he pulls on that green and gold. So I'm hoping it's not a case of him being overplayed at the moment. He is a bit flat. I'm hoping that it's a bit like last year, where maybe for whatever reason the Shark system doesn't necessarily suit him. He doesn't necessarily have the same role or same responsibility. I think that he's very much somebody who rises to the occasion, and when he runs out leading the Boks, I think that that's him in his element, and that's where we see the best of him. And if we see anything like what we saw from him last year, I'm going to be very happy with him, because last year he was tremendous. Tian says, he'd like to see you again. Yeah, and also, what do we think about this time slot, by the way? Because the reality is that nights are not working at the moment due to other work commitments. I usually work a lot on night shifts where I start at 4 o'clock and I finish at midnight. So night shifts, night shows aren't really an option. So we experimented. We want to try and see if a midday show works, a lunchtime show works, if we should be looking at mid-morning shows. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, stuff like that, then put them in the comments and stuff. But Alpha Lingus says, brutally honest, let's win first in Blood and Bok, A team against the that aren't must-win games. Yeah, I think that's sort of the general consensus. The idea that if you can beat Wales in the first 2 games, you then got a test to play with, and you can go and experiment there. What I'm a little bit upset about is that we were supposed to be having a South Africa A versus the French Barbarian series, and that seems to have dissipated. There doesn't seem to be any talk about that, and I think that's pretty frustrating because I know it was the French Barbarians. It was supposed to be a French second side or whatever it was supposed to be, but I think this year would have been so useful to have had a SAA series, just 2 matches, maybe even or 3 matches, just to have played all the players who are on the Bok radar but can't get into that final squad, and there are lots of them. Loose forward is an incredibly, as always, incredibly stacked place in the squad. People are calling for Evan Roos to be in the squad. People are calling for Albert Lowe to be in the squad. People are calling for Marcel Coetzee to be in the squad. People are calling for Pepsi Buthelezi to be in the squad. If Vincent Tuka was South African, how do you not have him in the squad? He could very well be named the URC Player of the Season. He's picked up, I think, 6 Player of the Match awards in 18 weeks. Every third match, he's the Player of the Match. Those are 5 players who are not part of the current box squad and are not involved with the loose forwards like a Kwagga Smith, who was really good last year. Peter Steph, the toy, by the way, who didn't play much last year, is now coming back into the mix. Sia Khaleesi, SA Player of the Year. Dwayne Vermeulen, and then, so you got players like Renan Alstad, who you can maybe look at replacing, the Dupree twins. But even then, people are asking for the Dupree twins to be in there. We've got more loose forwards than we've got space in the box squad. So that's where I think the South Africa A series would have been so important and so useful in playing those players, playing some of the young players, and also even players who aren't capped, play, and just to say you are on the Bok radar. Bring players who are going overseas and something like a Ruan Ackerman, for example, cause they might play for England. Put him in the South Africa A side and say you are on our radar. You are an option for the box. Get him on our side. Something like Tyron Green. Get him back in South Africa, even if he can't make the box squad. And a lot of people will say he should be making the box squad, and I certainly wouldn't. I would love to see him in the box squad. I don't know if we've got space for him, but I think he's a player that deserves to be around there. So he is someone who I think is an option. But if you can get him in the South Africa A side, then all of a sudden you're just saying that your future is here with the Springboks, and we want you. But Tian says, since Rendock is injured, I would really love to see Grant Williams, Morley van den Berg, or Zach Berg getting a cap if their third test is a dead rubber. Yeah, I think Scrum-What's an interesting position, and I think that a year ago I would have said Jaden Hendricks would have been the ideal situation, but he hasn't been playing as well as we know he can play. I'm a massive Grant Williams fan. Obviously, Morley van den Berg's played really well for the Lions recently as well, so he's another option. I also think Ambrose Pierre is another one who's starting to play some good rugby at the moment. Matthew Dixon says the Wales series and TRC will be a great opportunity to bring in a whole host of new guys and for giving others a good run. Captain Crunch says, I'm not concerned about our forwards. Most of them are looking decent in the club competitions. I agree. Albert says, problem with Villiers is he is critical to Bok game plan because he can switch to first receiver and run the backline moves, but yes, Kalant is very good. Well, I think that Kalant could operate in that sort of role, and that's why I think that he makes the most sense, because I think he is a playmaker. A little bit more off the cuff type thing, but I think that he could fill that role much more so than I think Fassi could. I think Tyron Green also could, to a certain degree, could potentially fill that role, and that's why Damien Willemse has been used as an option instead of Willie, because he's a flower half by trade. So I don't think it's his best position, but he can play that role, as you say, as a first receiver, because Pollard doesn't offer that sort of attacking flower half mindset. David says, Tyron Green at fullback. Yeah, not a bad option at all. Alf Ningen says, Fassi can't tackle at all. He's probably the worst defense player in the URC by a very long way. Yo says, Fassi is a world class on attack. Oh, I'm assuming he's saying attack. Yeah, and he is. He really is. But that's not enough, and that's always my sort of issue, is that if Fassi managed to bring in that defensive side of his game, I think he's a shoo-in for a Bok fullback. But it is a part of his game which there are question marks about. And can you really have question marks about somebody's game when you're playing international rugby? Grant Swallows, how's Grant says Sia's form could have a lot to do with the poor form of the Sharks. Yeah, I mean, he said they're not playing particularly well, so sometimes it's hard to play well in a bad team. Sometimes some teams some players perform brilliantly in a great team and stuff, and or a poor team and stuff. Matthew says my forwards to bring along would be Joseph Dwebe, Evan Lewis, Albert Lowe, Johan Krabala, Ruan Nokia, Percy Buthelezi, Noche, Ox, Carly Sari, Thomas Totoy. Yeah, all players who I think wouldn't look amiss in the box squad. I think Noche's probably not had enough game time. I think he needs to leave and come to the Lions so that he can get game time. But yeah, I think all those players wouldn't look out of place. Jobs says fashion is Fassi is a world class attack, but I agree his tackling needs to improve. Sean says this works for me as I live in Thailand, so it's my evening. It's the first time I'm able to catch you live on these chats. Well, there we go. Good evening from Melbourne, Australia. Albert says I'm on lunch, so it works for me. So yeah, maybe we're missing something. Maybe this lunchtime, and I'll try and make sure we go at 1 o'clock more. But maybe a lunchtime show does work quite nicely. Because obviously we seem to be also getting the other time. And I suppose, if you're in the States or whatever, you could be waking up, but it could be an early morning thing. So maybe this does work quite well. Who knows? Yeah, so Sean is saying we need to get an SAA going. Even the Aussies are sending an 18 to play against Fiji Samoa. Against a very good idea. Maybe SAA should be entered into an African Cup. That way we can build while also helping out other African nations. Hurston is coming back. Yeah, I'll talk about that now because I saw the rumors and I'm livid about them. But speaking of defense, I've been impressed with Kanan Moody at 15-40 for the Bulls. Plays with calmness beyond his 19 years. Yeah, he's a very, very exciting player. And when Jake trusts you at that age, it usually means that you're very good. Fussy just needs a time. He's still young, having the mix so that you can learn from others. Just don't just have to handle caps. I agree. Every pick will be based on how good they are in defense. My backs to bring along would be Fussy, Tyne Jordan Hendrickson, Madosh Tamwe, Stedman Khans, Grant Williams, Warwick Halant, Andre Hestehazen, Monty Similani, and the time suits you. Yeah, so I think if we go through the squad or 23 rather, and let's look at position stuff like that. I think front row we are very much we're very sorted. We've got Ox at loose head. We've got Stephen Kitsoff at loose head. We've got Trevor Nyakane. He's probably the best switch prop in the world in terms of a player who can play on both sides. We've got Frans Maherbe who's back. We've got Thomas Toy who's playing very good rugby at the moment. There's obviously players like Wilco Lowe. Something like Carly Sari, for example, would very much look is in my opinion very much good enough to be in that box squad. So I don't think that I think props aren't an issue at all, and I'm sure I'm missing someone as well. Hooker, for example, Malcolm Marks, Bongi Manambi, you can't go wrong with those two. The third choice, Joseph Dwebe. I'm interested to see now with his move down to the Stormers. I think that's going to put him very much on the Springbok map because he's going to be under the nose of the Springbok selectors all the time. His move to Bordeaux didn't really work out, wasn't playing a lot. But Johan Krabala is playing very nice rugby at the moment, so I think that he's a very nice option. I wouldn't say that too many others. I mean, Aka van der Merwe has always been an option, but doesn't seem to, for whatever reason, get a look at him in this current squad. But after those options, I wouldn't say there's too many people who are bashing the door down. President Barter was part of a lineman camp a year ago and now can't find a game. Stormers change their hookers every 3 seconds. Garen Tabane is obviously a very capable player, but he's not currently injured. The Lions have a hooker crisis. So, yeah, I think those sort of 4 or 5 players are very much up here, and there's not much after that. I think that, obviously, I think Locke is our bread and butter, isn't it? Arceus Neyman's got all the injury issues, but, he's world class. But, you've got Franco Moss, you've got Evan Etzebeth, you've got Arceus Neyman. Now I think you should be looking at adding something like a Ruan Nokia. Obviously, they have very highly rated Salman Murat. Marvin Uri's been involved. I think that I know that people don't rate him. I really rate Salman Murat. I think that needs a bit more playing time, needs to play more consistently, but I think that he's a world-class talent, and I think him and Ruan Nokia could be a very good lock combination moving forward. But lock's not an issue, and we know that loose forward isn't an issue. Our 8th man options are Dwayne Vermeulen, Jasper Wiese. You could have Eda Toy on your Depriya. You could have Quacker Smith at 8th man if you want a different thing. You could have Albert Lowe. You could have Evan Ruiz. You could have Pepsi Buthelezi. You could have Siko Mozenochi. We're talking about having 8 number 8s who I think are all good enough to play for the Springboks. That's how much depth we've got at 8. You know, the flanks as well. We've just got a plethora of loose forwards, and that doesn't even include somebody like a Vincent Suka who hasn't qualified yet. Marcel Coetzee, for example, who doesn't seem to be part of the conversation. It's interesting because when I saw that Albert Lowe was included in the Bokulami camp and Evan Roos wasn't, I actually agreed with it, to be honest. And I think that if you take emotion aside and if you look at a checkbox of what each player does, I think that Ulrich Lowe is a far more all-round player and far more the finished product than Evan Roos is. I think Evan Roos is a very fiery character. He's a very confrontational person. He's very much in people's faces and he carries very hard and stuff like that. And he's probably one of the best ball carriers in the URC, which is a lot when you think of the players that Leinster and stuff have as well. But I think that Ulrich Lowe is a very safe option because he just does everything so well. He is very good ball carrier. He's a very good defender. His soft skills are pretty good. I think that he is probably a more all-round player at the moment. But Evan Roos is very much just that sort of freak of nature type physical athlete who's just going to run over people. And there's definitely space for that. You know, the whole F them up physically. That's what Evan Roos does. You know, Marcel Coetzee, you know, why is he in the squad? But every single time you start saying, why isn't this guy in the squad? Who's he taking the place of? You know? So if you're taking Marcel Coetzee, who are you dropping? Now, if you're dropping Reynard Alstad, for example, I'm all for it. You know, it becomes quite difficult just in terms of you know who your options. I mean, Peter Seth Toy barely played. I mean, I don't even think he played for us last year. I'm trying to remember if he played a single game. Did he play the British National Line? When did he get injured? We get injured during the British. Oh, it was a long time ago. Because he got injured, and that's why then Franco Master went to 7. But was it him at 7? Yeah, I think it was him at 7. Anyway, you know, and then we played the remainder of the season without him. So something like that it's like having somebody back in the box in the squad, you know. I thought the Kwaka Smith last year for the first time won everybody over, and we saw how useful having somebody who's a bit different can be because of how quick he is, how good he is at the breakdown, you know, and he just adds a whole different dimension. So that's always an interesting thing. It's very easy to say I want all these players, but a box squad's 35 people. I think the World Cup's like 30, 31 people. There's not a lot of spots available. And every single time you're putting somebody in, somebody has to come out. So it's a very tricky sort of balancing act. Let me go through a couple of conversations, and we'll go with the rest. We'll go to the back line. Thoughts on another Lions exodus? Feel really bad for them seeing all the players will be leaving again. Yeah, I don't go there. I think it's difficult because it sounds like me being sour, but I think that Saru has to step into a certain degree, or needs to step into a certain degree because not to protect the Lions, but I think that it becomes very dangerous when a single union has all the talent. Carly Sardi is going to be bench warming for Thomas Toy. Carly Sardi, for me, has had games where he has very much mashed up Thomas Toy. So I don't think there's much in it. And with France Mahomes coming back from injury, I think you look at those 3 and you think that they're pretty similar ability-wise. Now, I don't think it's good for SRA that 2 players who are equal ability are only playing half a match each time on a provincial level. You know, Sikimo Inoche can't get into that Shark starting lineup. Sikimo Inoche was in the Springbok squad. You know, he's someone who was one stage, you know, during the Super Rugby, was one of the best 8th men in the competition. And he's getting 20 minutes of the Sharks. You know, I don't think it's healthy. You look at the scrum halves, for example, and you know, you had Snelle Nahamba, who was a box alignment camp member. You had Grant Williams, a box squad member, and you had Jaden Hendrickson, who was Springbok capped. 3 players who had all been in the Springbok setup at the same union. That means by default, literally one of them can't even play any minutes on a URC weekend. So I think that SA Rugby needs to be quite careful in ensuring that we cannot let one side have monopoly over all the talent because I think it just wastes the talent. Vincent Tuka's going down to the Sharks, so they're going to have what? Khaleesi, Tuka, Pepsi Buthelezi. James Fenton's not playing. Sigmund Noche is not going to play. Dylan Richardson is not going to play. They can't. They don't have space for them, for example. So, I think that I think it, and a lot of people, I think it's great that the Sharks are sort of building the side that to try and conquer Europe, and hopefully they do. But it's a tricky road to go down where some of your best players aren't getting game time on a weekly basis. And can you justify picking someone who's playing 20 minutes every week and has played maybe 200 minutes across the entire season over someone who's starting at a Lions or a Stormers and playing out of their socks every single week? You can't. So I think that they just need to be a bit careful because, first of all, it looks bad when the Lions are good enough, and I understand that a lot of it's Lions' fault. They don't know the financial capacity, and I think that unfortunately they need. I mean, everyone's got a salary cap, which means that the Lions should be able to offer. They should be able to match any contract within the country. Whatever they offer Vincent Tuka and Carly Sardi, the Lions should have been able to match if they are using their full salary cap, which I don't think we are. And I know that then there's also these side sort of endorsements and stuff like that, which the Sharks help facilitate. And again, that becomes a grey area in terms of what's allowed with the salary cap and how you can sort of, it just gets a bit messy in terms of how suddenly the salary cap is being abused in terms of like side offering and stuff like that. And we've seen the Saracens sort of deal, and that's what Rudolph Charlie came out and said. He said, we could very much have a Saracen situation because there could be some undercut deals happening. And I think a lot of that for him was a bit of sour grapes because they obviously can't keep their players. And I think the Lions need to jack up and start taking themselves seriously. And I want to start seeing the money. But there is the potential for that situation. I think it is a bit dangerous. But who's the upcoming fly off for the Boks? The scary thing, no one is coming through the ranks. You're going to talk about that. Do you think Ntukum Kunu is an option for the bomb squad? Very maybe unpopular opinion. Ntukum Kunu's name comes up every single time he has ball in hand and he makes either scores a try or he makes a break like he did against the Lions. He is a fantastic ball carrier. There's no doubt about that. He's a very exciting player. I don't think he is anywhere near the Boks squad right now because I do not think that he can scrum against the best in the world and hold his end up. Until he shows me that he's a world-class scrummager, which is his core responsibility, I don't think he's going to be able to make the step up yet. I'm saying right now. He's got a lot of time. Beast and Tarawera was obviously a very, very big ball carrier, and they had the whole thing where people trying to beast, and he was known for his ball carrying. But I think we underrate and we forget how good he was in the tight as well, in the tight phases, how good he was as a defender, how good he was at scrum time. Now, when Ntukum Kunu shows me that side of him as well, then I think you can start going to the Boks squad. But right now, I don't want to see someone who takes a half gap and because he's just so quick, he now needs to be in the Boks squad. But if you can't scrum, then what's the point? Alice's first 3 is great depth. Peter Steph Toy can come back and make it difficult for Loose, and he's a lock backup as well. Yeah, I would be interested to see if he might actually, with Archie Stamen, I think that sort of that bomb squad could work quite nicely with Peter Steph Toy being able to slot into a lock role later in the game. Albie says Murata's not aggressive enough or not strong enough. I don't rate him. Yeah, I do. I still think that he'll be fine. I think he needs more game stuff like that. But I think he's got a big future ahead of him. But yeah, that's the last thing about these shows, that everybody's got a different opinion. And JHB says Jordan Henshaw is probably the only other upcoming fly half. Chris Smith is good, but on international level, Liebach as well. You could even add Ruan Ackerman for number 8, literally. Apparently he's been lighting at the Premiership. Don't know if it's true. I haven't watched too much of him, but I know that he has apparently been playing quite well. Sean says agreed about Lowe and Ruiz. I find Ruiz needs to chill his horse with getting into people's faces. I mean, that penalty conceded the other day just for being best at Pratt. It's stupid. Benedict says PS got injured in the first test in the last 2. I think you're correct. Any chance Cornwall Hendricks? Not sure what's happening with the ongoing situation in SA Rugby. Yeah, I just think I'd love to see it, but he is probably for me a bit old. But he is still world class. Alex says agree with you on Ruiz. He needs a better all-round strategy game. Currently, he's like a Jack Russell playing chase the ball. Kudakwashe says Khaleesi is playing poor rugby at the moment. Hope that improves. World Cup squad increased to 33. Been watching Leicester. Jasper V says good, but not brilliant. Better bringing in Albert Lowe, says Colin Evans. Albie says that's why New Zealand Rugby have central contracts. They control where the players go and make sure certain players get game time. If the Sharks conquer Europe, then we will praise the move. Then with the depth they will have, but it can also backfire. So we need to be careful. 100%. That's what I'm saying. I think there's a fine line between having great depth and just too much depth. Having 3 Springbok rated scrum halves is probably too much depth. having two and then a nice exciting youngster or a very experienced player where if there's injuries can step in the case, fantastic. But you can't have someone who was part of a Springbok alignment camp carrying tackle bags the entire week and not ever playing. Josh says, where do you think Daylander is going, and do you think Blommetjie is a good replacement for Galant? I think he is a good replacement for the way that the Stormers play. I think it's not to be mean. I mean, it is a bit of a downgrade, I suppose. I don't think he is in the same class, but he's a very exciting counter-attacking fullback that likes to run with the ball and has an X factor, and that's what Galant is. So within the country, I think they've made the right decision. I think Hugh and Horn probably would have been a good option for them as well. But obviously that we need him at the line, so don't even think about it. But I think that Blommetjie within the country is probably quite a shrewd move. It hasn't been confirmed. I mean, it's been confirmed that he's in talks, but Galant hasn't actually yet signed the contract, so he could yet, if anything were to happen, potentially stay as Dormers. But he is in advanced negotiations with a French club, and it should be announced probably quite soon. Matthew says the Lions should maybe consider becoming fan-owned. Fans of the polish of the union have a say in the signings, like some soccer clubs. Yeah, I'm all for that. I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to buy any ownership, which would frustrate me. Thoughts on Pollard at the moment? Bring back Aka over Dweber, Marcel over Sia. Yeah, you see, like that. You just said that you're going to drop the Springbok captain and the 2021 World Player of the Year nominee and South African Player of the Year winner. Just so that we're clear on, and that's what you're saying. But let's keep going. So scrum halves, Kubus Renakas injured, which means that there is a spot available. I think Hershey Yankees would be pretty lucky to get into the squad based on his form. I think he has had a couple of nice games, and I remember doing a watch along where he played quite well, and I was like, that's more what we need to see. But of course, the entire season, I think that he's looking a bit of a shadow of his former self. So I'll be interested to see what they go. I think Grant Williams obviously had a fantastic cameo off the bench last weekend. I personally think Ambrose Pierce looked very, very good, especially from a tactical point of view. His tactical kicking and his game management I've been very impressed with. Morley van den Berg has, alongside a couple of other players, led the early resurgence of the Lions at the beginning of the year. So, but I think we've got quite a lot of scrum half options. Fly half for me is just the biggest issue because now we don't know what's happening with Alton Yankees. I don't know what's happening with this court case or what actually happened. There was one. I mean, it's been a weird situation because he appeared in court and I think something was supposed to happen in is June, but I'm trying to see what he was officially charged with. Yeah, I mean, there's talking about him banging on a door, speaking to a air hostess. There's a the official report that came out said that he broke a light. It's a very strange situation because also nothing's come out since. So who knows what's going on there? Put it this way, right now, if we were to say that he's not going to be part of the box squad, then we're looking at Andre Pollard, it's just not the Andre Pollard that we used to. And after that, who are your options? Mornay stayed retired, so we need a third Springbok fly half option. Damien Willemse for me is not a fly half option. So who are your other options then? You know, and you're looking at and you know, Monty Liebach was the leading point scorer and has been playing some very good rugby. And I really like Liebach. I think he's a very exciting player. He's not really a Springbok mold fly half, is he? Look, neither is Alton Yankees. And I suppose that maybe Alton Yankees is an example of a player who, despite not fitting the system, if you play well enough, you have to select it because he was the second best fly half in the country, and there was no argument about that, and that's why he was involved. So your other options, Sharks the fly half is a disaster. Chris Smith has had an up and down season, so the other option is somebody like a Jordan Hendrickson, for example, who is 20 years old, and is he ready for this? Look, one thing I will say about Jordan Hendrickson is that if you watch him, you don't think he's 20 because of how mature he is physically as well as the way he plays. I think that Hendricks, I mean, Hendricks could be a bit like a Pollard in terms of being able to play inside center because his defense is so good. Not that I'm saying we need to change him because I think he is a fly half, but that's a big risk to try and put him in the squad at such a young age. Um, but yeah, and then the wings wise we're fine. Centers I think I'll be interested to see if Andre Estesen comes back in it because he has been literally bashing the door down. So he probably does need to be in the squad. I think outside center for me is a bit of a worry because after Lacanya, I'm where we at, who he's playing there. And then we spoke about fullback earlier. But Cornet says, just join. Why do you think the squad hasn't been announced yet? Do you think the Alta case might be a reason? It was said the squad should have been announced end of last week. I don't think that the case, Alta's case, is the reason at all. I don't think they would delay a Bok announcement based on one player. I think we could see an announcement this Sunday. I've heard rumors about this Sunday, which would make sense because I said apparently they're supposed to go into camp next week. Sunday Monday the 6th of June. I'm hearing that they're going to go into camp. So for me, it would make sense for this weekend or on Sunday the 5th to make the announcement. I don't know why they haven't announced it, but as soon as I know, we will let you know. Says Akka has a massive rift between him and the Bok manager, so that's what happens. Sia will turn it around when Sia puts in the Springbok jersey, goes another level. Agreed. Stephen, how many liters of tears did you cry when Sardi took a sign for the Sharks? Well, let's just say that Joburg are going to have a water crisis anytime soon. Daniel Williams at 10. Watch it. Andrew Estays at 12. Delinda on the bench. Big call. Delinda might go to Japan. Yeah, I think Delinda will go to Japan. I think if you think that he's going to be in South Africa, I think unfortunately you're dreaming. I don't see him sticking around here at all or coming back here. I think he's going to go to Japan. He'll play half a season and then he gets to focus on the World Cup. Masuka Do from the Cheetahs, I think deserves maybe looking. Yeah, I would like to see the Lions go after Masuka and bring him in because I think that he would be a very nice option to have with Hendrickson. During the World Cup, the commentators from Australia said Sia shouldn't be in the team, said Francois Lowe was better, which he was. Also, Sia even admitted he's a captain who can't captain. Just a server. Like, did you not watch last year? Did you not watch? I mean, did you not watch a single rugby match last year when Springboks played? I'm just confused. Are you like? I'm just answer me that question. Did you watch a match? That's all you have to. That's all you need. That's all I want you to answer is: did you watch a Springbok match last year? And if the answer is yes, then the conversation rests because we all know how good he was last year. Henna says the Pity Lions did not make the playoffs. Yeah, listen, it was going to be a long fetch for that. But anyone knows what's going on. Also, I don't think he has ever said he's a captain who can't captain. Find me that quote. Please drop me a link to that video where he says, yeah, so I'm a captain, but I actually don't know how to captain. Yeah, I'm not a captain, but it's quite cool being a captain. Like I said, anyone knows what's going on with the Rugby Championship format? Why are we getting 2 All Blacks games and no Oz games? Is to do with COVID again. We are getting Oz games. Away games. I don't know why they're doing it. I don't know if it's a COVID thing, but the format's the same. It's just the venues that are the issue. The formats we play every team twice. It's just I'm assuming it's COVID. That's the reason. I think it was. I've got the press release somewhere in terms of why we're at the various different grounds, stuff like that. So you pick Sia just on his past merits. The guy's playing some poor rugby. He's not the best 6 at the moment. Put him in the squad just like we use Skulk Brits. Yes, I am picking Sia based on the fact that he was within the top 10 best rugby players on the planet 6 months ago, and that he was named the best Springbok player of 2021. That's like saying that last year we were picking Peter Steph the Toy based on the fact of his past merits when his past merits were World Player of the Year. So, yes, I am. What should I say? Mine Liebach for potential. Yeah, as I said, I think it's Mine Liebach or Jordan Henderson the only other viable options really. Obviously, Yankees are serious because it could stop him from being able to fly again, FIA regulations and all of that. Daniel Host, I think the Lions should be replaced by the Cheetahs and be merged to the Bulls so the Bulls can become a franchise for Gauteng. Nope, it won't work, unfortunately. Unfortunately, you can't just decide 2 clubs need to merge. They hold different systems, hold different structures. The Cats were a disaster. There's a reason that they ended. Jason Grant says Willem says a brilliant playmaker, but in any of our current 10s. I think Willems has been brilliant at 12. I've long said that that's his position. It means he doesn't have to worry about place kicking because his place kicking is a problem. His general infield kicking and tactical kicking is solid, but nothing phenomenal, which is why somebody who has a step and an attacks like him and a very good defensively, I think 12 is his perfect position. And I think that he's someone who can play at 10 if he needs to, he can play in the wing if he needs to, and he can play at full back. So he's a perfect versatile player. I wouldn't start him at 10 though. France don't have a Damien any day. None of the players you mentioned at 10 can tackle. If you don't think that Jordan Hendrickson can tackle, then you've never watched Jordan Hendrickson. I agree with David Malherbe. If Morne is guaranteed game for the time, he'll say yes, as that was made for reasons to go into it. Now he won't come back. You think Esterhuizen's banging the door like Elton Yankees has been? Creel outside centre or Wandile are the only other two options. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Is that and look, I can't say I watch too much top league, so I've got no idea if Creel is playing well or not. But he is the natural outside center. Second, he was the outside center second option after Lekanya. But yeah, I've got no idea what he's playing like at the moment. After him, as he said, who are the outside center options? You know, Ruan now for me is not somebody who's knocking the door down. So yeah, and even Similani, you know, I'd love to have him in the box squad, and I think he's a very special player, but he's been a bit inconsistent. Well, I think he's a product of the Lions system at the moment, where he's just not being used properly. But not say that should be the call. What do you think about Dion Farouk and cover hooker as well? I wouldn't put him in the box squad. I think he's had a very good season. But he's very much no longer a hooker. Even the Stormers were saying that they don't want to play him as hooker. So, but he has been. I've been very impressed with. Yeah, past merits not compared to the current form. Oh my goodness, Oaks. Like, glad you ain't a couch. I'm also glad I'm not a couch. It'd be very difficult to do this if I was a couch. So it's probably quite a useful thing that. Watch out for Masuku the cheaters. I agree. Masuku can play with the big boys. Masuku, I just say get into the lines. Let's actually go and flip and sign a decent player for once. Tim van den Berg says here must be a player that turns out massive for country, but not always for the club. Marnani was the same, 100%. Marnani could be playing the worst rugby of his life. You put him in an all black jersey, and he was the best number 12 in the world. Why do you think Ruiz is currently omitted? I just think there's not enough space for him. And he then did go back and said and play really well. And actually recognized him on Twitter and said, well, this is what we want. We want you to not make the squad, and then go out and say, bugger you, I should be in the squad. Heno says we have Jordan Henderson, Monty Lee, Chris Smith, Robert Dupree as fly cover. Hurson will come back from injury later this year. Williams to stay and Chairs and cover 10 as well. S10 is playing really good rugby. Dylan says, I agree with the Khaleesi views. I don't know why some people have a vendetta against him. He was phenomenal last year. Agreed. I don't know why the Sharks bought Vince Tuka when he does not even bring any value to the Lions. Now you're just trying to bait me. Nice try though. I'm not going down that. If anybody thinks that he generally doesn't bring value to the Lions, then I might have to retire as a rugby fan, as a watcher. Yeah, I don't see any value in us having Johan Goosen's conversation with the box. He's made of glass, guys. He did the same thing last year. He played a couple of games, and we know he is a freak of nature. He is probably one of the most naturally talented rugby players to have ever pulled on a Springbok shirt, which is a massive call, but I think he probably is. In terms of just God-given rugby talent, he's phenomenal. He can't play more than 4 matches in a row, so it's a non-starter. Grant says, I'll be wary about judging a player from the Premiership. They're up against a lot of deeply average players. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? The fact the Premiership is so big that, you know, and that's, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting concept, you know, the idea of standards, because you look at the Premiership, and I know that there are a lot of international players and stuff like that, but there are a lot of teams all from one country, really. We're talking about a 13-team league. So, what is the stand? You know, for example, West are currently bottom of the log. Where do they stack up? You know, do they Are they, that's what I'd love to know. If was to play the Lions, for example, who wins that play? What's the standard of the Premiership? That'd be interesting. I mean, sort of see, you kind of see it in the Champions Cup. But I think we'll see it a lot more next season when we suddenly get to start playing against some of these sides. But for example, it's a French side and it's a Irish side in the Champions Cup. So, who you got between Bulls and Sharks? I actually don't know. I personally, my gut says the Bulls are the better side at the moment, but that Sharks are so up and down that if they were to come right, then I reckon they can beat the Bulls as well. I've actually got no idea. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Are you serious about? Well, we need to know if he is serious, because if not, then we're gonna have issues. How did the URC Lions lost against the C Team Bulls? I would have found ourselves asking. I don't care about the Currie Cup. As far as I'm concerned, it didn't happen this year. Dianti for the World Cup. Well, Dianti at the Sharks apparently, because we can't even. I mean, the Lions are so hopeless at the moment. We can't even keep players who are not allowed to legally sign for other unions. You can't even legally play the sport, and we still can't keep them in the bloody province. It's a disaster. Just try. Yeah, good. Sean says his memory has it. I think staff and supporters are always critical of our captain for the Boks, Teichmann, Smith, De Villiers, Skinstad, and a few they always seem picked when they have. That's a very good point, actually. Because, there was also that whole thing about John Smith shouldn't have been there because Bismarck was playing too well and stuff like that. So, maybe it's like a Springbok curse that nobody likes you, nobody backs you. Galant could back up at 13. Yeah, I'd love to see Galant at 13. I don't know if he's going to be in the box squad. I think he has to be in the box squad. And that is an interesting concept. It's a bit like, Chesney can cover 10 if needed to be, but not natural positions. What are your predictions for the URC players? Can Leinster be stopped, hopefully by one of the SCTs? I don't see Leinster being stopped. I think Leinster are far too strong. So if you look at the matches, my early predictions are Munster beats Ulster. I think Bulls beat Sharks. Stormers beat Edinburgh. And Leinster beat Glasgow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who we're going to see in the final. I think Leinster will obviously be in the final. You never know. Final rugby, playoff rugby is a strange thing, huh? Sometimes teams can just turn it on, and in a couple of moments will can define an entire tournament. So I wouldn't write off any of the teams for to be able to beat Leinster, but they are definitely the overriding favourites. Grant Swartz, I think the URC is of a higher standard overall compared with the Premiership. Well, I mean, it's a lot more international players, for example, in it. So I think that's a very interesting concept, and it's always difficult to gauge, isn't it? Squad will only be announced way later, so reckon Sorrel. You think Leinster will easily win the URC? Tyron Green and Estes have proven their worth, as Andrew Capizzi said, proved for Italy. That size doesn't really match in rugby anymore if you possess the skills. No, I definitely don't think Tyron Green, for example, won't play box because he's too small. I mean, Jason Colby is there. It's whether you could do the job. So the line to cover centre. Jason Colby had a mention as what? I mean, he's obviously going to be back in the squad. In terms of other positions, then I suppose he can cover. I mean, again, he's a fullback option, although they just don't seem to really want to use him at fullback. Obviously, don't give us Stormers boys hopes. We've been down too many times. Matthew Dick says, Steve, will this be our best chance to win the Freedom Cup? 2 home games, I think we can do it. Yeah, I mean, really, logistically, it probably is our best chance to win it. I've got tickets to the one. Whether I'll go and leave you guys is another matter, though. We'll have to wait and see. I think Leinster and Ulster in final. Leinster should win, reckons Hunley. And Grant Swartz, I would not be so quick to say my beloved Stormers will beat Edinburgh. We have a rather shocking record cup knockout rugby. URC is good for different types of competition, but the referees are terrible. Rucker says, I will tend to agree, but only a certain extent, because URC also has teams such as Zebra, Cardiff Dragons, who are also fairly garbage. Yeah, I suppose that's the reality of any competition, isn't it? That there are some top teams and some pretty appalling teams. What I think we didn't actually pay attention to enough is the fact that there were 22 points between 1st and 10th. Lions finished 12th and finished 26 points behind Leinster. Leinster won 5 more matches than the Lions, who came 12th. I think that's the sign of a decent league. The fact that they, first place won 13 games, second, third won 12 games. The next 3 all won 11 games. The next 3 all won 10 games. The next two, then suddenly. So I think the URC was quite close. When you think, especially if you look at Glasgow Warriors in 8th, 50, 54, 56, 57, 58, 59, 61, 67. So the URC was quite close, which I thought was quite cool. That last weekend, there were so many things that could have changed. The top 8 was settled, but where those top 8 would finish was still very much up for grabs. TM Berks, I found out where the Pivac ruled out Wales' top turnover winner from the Welsh squad because he was too small when you literally have Kwaka in the team. Yeah, and look, I think that omission was a very strange one. Sharks lost to Cardiff. Quintus's Premiership rugby is much better to watch, nicer to the eye. Well, I mean, that depends on the game, really, doesn't it? And again, we're in the first season of the URC as well, so I think the next season is going to be more the one to judge on it. But anyway, we're going to call it there, people, because unfortunately I've got other jobs and other things to do. But I think this worked quite nicely. I think that, it was interesting to see that people are available at this time to come on and chat, stuff like that. So we will try and do more live shows. I think maybe a lunchtime show works quite nicely. Maybe we'll look at potentially a morning show. There obviously will be evening shows, but it all kind of comes down to my timetable and stuff like that. Because unfortunately, this is very much not a full-time job. Wish it was, but it's not. But if you are not subscribed, please do subscribe so that you can help us maybe make it become a full-time job one day. And if you'd like to be a member, obviously the link in the description, stuff like that, for a little bit of support and stuff. But apart from that, please do smash the like button.